Hey, can you hear my tunes? I'm jamming out. My favorite song. Hey, Michael. Good morning. Glad to see you here. Can you hear my music? Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm wondering if anyone can hear my awesome song. Oh, it's too bad. I want you all to go play September by Earth, Wind, and Fire and jam out. It is a great way to start your day and it gets you ready for the new month, which is coming up tomorrow. Can't believe it. So it's blaring in my ears. I'll turn it off. But welcome, everybody. My name is Hannah Morgan. I am Career Sherpa, and we're going to be talking about Summary Sundays. This past Summary Sunday, I just put it in the comments. Oh, good. I'm glad you. I'm glad you could hear it, John. Um, so what I'm going to be talking about today are the articles that were in the Summary Sunday Pandemic Job Search Strategies, and I put a link to that in the first comment. So you should see that under in the first comment in our stuff here. So you can follow along with me. What I know, and last week's was about sort of doing new things, and I sort of have to continue along that theme. The articles that are in this week's Summary Sunday, as I've said, I pull them from my Twitter feed. These are articles that have done well. They've gotten a lot of views. They've got a lot of activity on them, and that's how I select them. Um, except for one, which is actually the second one, which we'll talk about. But the first one was 7 job search rules you should break now. And I have always said that job search is about knowing what rules you can break and when. When when I worked with job seekers in a career center, what I found was that so many of the job seekers wanted to follow the rules, right? Okay, that means applying for a job online and waiting to hear back. The problem with doing that is that we know from experience that it's not really effective. So in the Fast Company article that I shared, there were 7 rules to break. And the first rule is head to the job boards to look for job openings. We know, and I'm going to have to sort of hit that nail over and over again, is that going to the job boards to look for openings is probably one of the last things that you want to do for your job search, because the a very small percentage, and I think that number is, you know, 20% or less, and I know that number sounds big, but it's still not that big. The majority of people are not hired because they've applied solely for a job online. The next rule to break, according to this Fast Company article, is reach out to everyone in your network. And while that seems like a good idea, you need to sort of step back and say, okay, let me be more strategic about who I reach out to in my network. Let me start with the depending on where you are in your search, if you need feedback on the types of jobs that you want to apply to or the types of positions you want to apply to, you need to start with people who know you best, who can give you sort of that honest feedback. If you've already nailed that down and you know that you want to be applying for jobs that are in such and such a company or in such and such an industry, then you want to be strategic and reach out to people you already know who are playing in that field, that are in that industry, in that company. It doesn't mean that you won't reach out to everybody, because you really should eventually, but always start with the people that are most closely aligned with what it is you want to do and move from there. Um, a lot of the next rule is make sure that you're qualified. And that's sort of an interesting rule. It's been my experience in speaking with so many job seekers that we tend to weed ourselves out rather than put ourselves into a job description, into a job opportunity. So in other words, we talk ourselves out of applying for that job because we don't think we might be qualified. And this has been my experience. This has been my experience, and this has been my recommendation. If you meet the majority of the qualifications, go ahead and apply. In other words, if you don't meet one or two of the things that they're asking for, you don't know how important those two things are. They may not be important at all. So go ahead. If you meet the majority of the things that they're looking for, go ahead and apply. It's like buying a lottery ticket. You'll never know what's going to happen unless you apply. So go ahead and do that. Adapt to be a culture fit is another bad idea. You should not have to adapt yourself to fit the culture of a company. That's a recipe for disaster. Your chances of being able to stay in that job for a longer period of time are slim. It's good to understand what the culture of the company is, and you can really learn a lot by going through the interview process if you can get there. But don't try and put yourself as a square peg in a round hole, because that's just a recipe for disaster. So don't do that. Um, the other rule is don't bother with a cover letter. And oh my gosh, there's so much being said about this right now online. I saw something on Twitter. I saw something else on LinkedIn. Um, you should always bother with a cover letter. You can't make people read it. And it may not ever get read. But if somebody does like to read cover letters or might want to read your cover letter, you better make sure it's a darn good one and not just some template that you use for the same every job that you apply to. You need to take the time to explain to that person at that company why you're interested in working for them, why you meet the qualifications that they're looking for, and something else that makes them feel like they know you better. Um, Resume format doesn't matter. It absolutely matters, and you want to make sure that you're using a resume that is going to import well into their applicant tracking system, which gets into the next one of the other posts that's in this week's Summary Sunday. And the other myth is to wait for the perfect job. There is no such thing as the perfect job. You may not know if it's going to be a perfect job unless you actually go through the interview process and get into the role. There are so many times where people have been pleasantly surprised by what actually happens once they get in the job. Everyone has a different situation. I don't want you to be afraid. It's easy to get afraid of the unknown, like, oh my gosh, I won't be a fit in this job. It's not going to work out. It's not going to be, you won't know exactly what that job is going to be like until you get into it. By all means, you must do your due diligence. Talk to people outside of the organization, the business, the company, prior to taking the job. Do a good job during the interview asking good questions to help you understand what that job is going to be like, what their leadership style is going to be like. But if you're waiting for everything to line up perfectly, like the job, everything in the job is perfect, the manager is perfect, the company values are perfect. If you're waiting for all of that to line up and be perfect, that may never happen. So you have to understand that there are trade-offs that you're going to make as well. And if they're asking you to do a couple of things in that job description that aren't perfect, get in there and see what they really need. Maybe you can hand those off to somebody else, or maybe in that company, the things that they're asking you to do aren't that bad. So if you haven't gone through and read the job search rules to break, you should. It was in Summary Sunday. Um, as always, if you've got any comments that you want to make, questions that you want to ask, go ahead and do so in the comment box. The other article was about a blue ocean strategy for your job search. And if you haven't read, there was a great book about blue ocean strategy, which was really written for business growth and marketing. I don't want, it's a little bit heady, and I don't want to try and dive into it too deep, but basically, you want to present yourself and your qualifications as uniquely qualified and somebody who is an innovative thinker and who is thinking outside of the box, and that you can morph and change as needed for a position. They refer to it as the idea of value innovation. So go ahead and learn a little bit more about this new idea, if it's new to you, of blue ocean strategy, and how you can apply that to your job search. The easier article to sort of talk about was JobScan's resume PDF versus Word, and a little bit of help and insight around when to use a PDF and when to use a Word doc. And this is, again, another hotly debated topic. When you ask recruiters which should be used, a PDF or a Word doc, even they don't agree on that. It really, there's so many factors. What applicant tracking system are you going to be uploading your resume into? Some accept Word better than PDF and vice versa. And if you're not uploading your resume into an applicant tracking system, then in general, the rule of thumb is to send your resume as a PDF. But go ahead and skim that article so you can have a better understanding of what's going on with Word, PDF, when to use which. Again, there are a lot of different opinions out there. It's not about what you prefer, it's really about what the recruiter prefers and what which actual applicant tracking system they are using. So that was the JobScan article. If you wanted to learn more about the hidden job market, and again, there are different views on this hidden job market. What is it really, and when does it come into play? Andrew Seaman, he's the editor, one of the editors on LinkedIn, wrote an article and he interviewed some people about what the hidden job market really is. There are a couple of different definitions. One is, it is the market for jobs before they're advertised, which is probably the more universal, more well-known. But in some cases, people are saying, it's really, the job may be advertised internally or being promoted internally, but not externally. That can be a hidden job market, which is true. It could be that the company is only doing a confidential search for somebody they plan on replacing. It could be that they're looking for a senior level person and nobody really knows that's going on. So I think there's a lot being said about the hidden job market. There should be. It's important to understand why you want to be aware of the hidden job market, and the real secret to tapping into the hidden job market is, of course, networking. So there's some article, that article talks more about the hidden job market. The next article is by Virginia Franco Resume. So hi to you, Virginia. Thank you for writing this article about LinkedIn for career change. What Virginia does in this article is she uses sort of a case study of somebody who is going to be changing careers and how they're going to be changing different elements in their LinkedIn profile. And while you may not be making the exact same change, I think you can use that example to help you understand how important it is for your resume to send the right message, for you to do the hard work it takes to help somebody looking at your resume on your LinkedIn profile, to help them understand what you're looking for and why you're qualified. And so a lot of thinking has to go into that before you can really just make that change happen. And so that was a great article by Virginia Franco. So thanks for that. The next article was about interviewing virtually. You can never get enough information on virtually interviewing, whether it's through Zoom or one-way interview where it's, just you speaking and answering questions and they're recording the answers. You're recording the answers and submitting them to them. What I liked about this article, it was there were some good ideas about having the right light and choosing, the right angle, that kind of thing. So it got a little bit more granular than some of the others that sometimes are more generic. So that was a good article by my friend Mac Pritchard at Mac's List. I shared this article and really liked it because it addresses a huge shift that I know we're starting to see and we'll probably see even more, which is how do we get the next level education we need? And that Google has a plan to to disrupt the college degree. I have long said it shouldn't take 4 years to learn something, and that's how long we're in college. And I know that college is serving different purposes for different people. Um, but if you are looking to learn how to develop curriculum online, you shouldn't have to go get a master's degree in online curriculum development. I mean, it can't hurt, but it's very expensive to do it that way. And so if you can get a certificate program in under your belt through Google or any other provider that allows you to gain tactical knowledge that you can actually put into play immediately, that's a huge advantage over the master's degree or a 4-year program. There was some talk not too long ago about new collar jobs. New collar jobs were defined by a woman, I can't remember her name, but they are jobs that don't require a 4-year degree. They usually have something to do with technology or analytics that don't necessarily need a wide level of knowledge, but more of a deep level of knowledge. So new collar jobs are defined as those that don't require a 4-year degree. And so Google has said, you know what, there are a lot of jobs that don't require a 4-year degree. So let's do something about that. Let's make certificate programs available to more people so that people can more cost effectively, who are sincere about learning things, get the knowledge they need and get them into the workforce faster. And so I think that that is definitely something we're going to be seeing a lot more of. It's going on now. Google is just one of the many different players who have been offering certificate programs. And I can't remember the other names of the other organizations that are doing that, but there are a lot of them who have started to do that. Great. Okay, so then the last article, I think it's the second to last article, was written by my friend, colleague, Jack Kelly, over on Forbes. Self-confidence leads to success in your job search and career. And if you have been out of work for any amount of time, you know what toll that has played on your self-esteem, your self-confidence, how you view yourself. It's really easy to get down on yourself when you're in job search. You face a lot of rejection. People don't respond to simple emails. The people you thought were your friends are no longer, they've gone dark, they've gone silent, they've ghosted you. So there are a lot of weird things that make us second guess our ability to do what we've always done, or to embark on something new and different. So self-confidence is key. At the end of the day, there are two candidates. One exudes self-confidence. One is sort of not so confident about their abilities. And guess who gets the job? The one who has more self-confidence. So take the time to follow some of the steps on well-being that Jack Kelly recommends in his article on self-confidence in Forbes. And the last article was one in which I was mentioned. Kiplinger interviewed me for my take on, how do you job search during a pandemic, which is sort of what we've been talking about every day since this all started. So I sort of round up some of my best tips there. The part of this is networking during a pandemic, and you can network just as well, if not better, during a pandemic than you can network with people in person. So at the end of the day, we can complain and say our hands are tied, we can't do things, but the reality is that even now during a pandemic, companies are hiring, and I talk about some of the industries that we've seen doing the hiring. People are networking probably easier today than it has been in the past. And people are more empathetic and more willing to have a conversation with you even if you don't know them. But I don't recommend that you do that kind of networking. I want you to get referred to people that you need to know rather than reaching out cold all day long. That's my recommendation. So I just wanted to say that that's all I've got. I went through it pretty quick this week. One of the things that I'm working on, I'm trying to figure out how to make it happen, is I would love to bring in another voice sort of the second part of this conversation. And as I was thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I want to bring in one of the people that are featured in the Summary Sunday, which doesn't give me a lot of time to reach out and connect with somebody. So we'll see what's going to happen with that. I definitely next week will have another voice, and I'll let you know who that's going to be. But I don't have somebody this week. And it's great to see you all. Hey, Jody, thanks for being here. Marina has a question. Is it okay to mention, and I'll post that. So I am also using StreamYard, in case you didn't notice, if it looks a little bit different. Is it okay to mention during an interview, even accidentally, that I know a person in the company because of previous collaboration, for example? Actually, it is a brilliant idea to always mention that and explain how you know that person. I'm hoping, Marina, that not only do you mention them, but you have talked to that person and asked them, what is it you like most about working here? What is it that you don't like about working here, off the record, right? Have that conversation with the person that you do know who works there, because their insight is going to be helpful. So during the interview, and hopefully in your cover letter or the outreach or your application, you can mention the fact that you know that person, because oftentimes companies offer referral bonuses to employees who have either recommended you work there or that you have a contact with. So not only are you doing yourself a favor and getting your application or your resume noticed by mentioning somebody, you could also be getting the person whose name you're dropping some extra cash or some other kind of bonus for being a referral source. So absolutely always mention that person. So you could say in your cover letter, in speaking with so-and-so from your company, I heard that, I learned that your company is working on new initiatives in this area, specifically cite what that area is, and that's something that I have a lot of experience in. As a matter of fact, so-and-so and I worked on that kind of a project together in a previous life. So that is, definitely a good thing to do. The chances that that employee may not be seen as good or in a positive light are probably pretty slim. And if you know the person, you probably already know, do they have a reputation for being a rabble-rouser or somebody that's a slacker? If that's the case, then you may not want to mention them in a lot of depth. Just say, so-and-so and I used to work on a previous life together at XYZ company where we worked on this project. It was my experience working with this person. They were diligent and a hard worker, and we worked on this kind of a project together. So spin your relationship with them in a positive light if you have a hunch that they may be sort of an iffy candidate or an iffy worker. Hey, Matt. So hopefully, Marina, that answers your question. I would definitely make a concerted effort, a purposeful effort to mention the name of the person that you worked with and the context by which they would know your work, or how they know your work, where you work together, because that can go a long way. They become a person that can can vouch for your work ethic or the kind of thing that you know how to do. So great. Matt, you ask a great question. Are you hearing about anything people are doing differently in cover letters to get them noticed? I think the number one thing that people have been doing, and you should always do, is use the name of the person you're actually writing to, to make it really a personal letter. So it's not just dear Sir, Madam, or dear whomever it may concern. I think that goes a long way to say, oh, this person has at least done some research to find the right people, the right person. It's hard to write a cover letter that is jazzy or that might get attention. We can't do anything. Personal preference goes back deep. So in that stream of recruiters that I was looking at about their personal preference for reading cover letters, there were some that said, I will never look at one, ever. It doesn't even matter what's in it. I'm not going to waste my time because I've seen too many bad ones. So they're not ever going to look at it. You can't change their mind, really. So don't even try. Just focus on knowing that they may pass that cover letter on to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager might have a different outlook. So you've got two audiences. You've got the recruiter who's first screening the cover letter and resume, and then you've got the hiring manager who may or may not get the actual cover letter from the recruiter. again, we can't control that, but whatever we write, we know we want to do a good job doing. Um, have I heard of anything else really innovative, creative that people are doing in a cover letter? And that I'm sort of racking my brain to see if anything, people are talking about why they want to work there. I guess you could include a link if you've got an online portfolio. You could do that if you've got a YouTube channel or a video link with a message that you customize. We talked last week about using Loom as sort of a video thing. You could potentially include a link to that message. Again, we can't make people click on this stuff, but if they do, that could be a game changer. And again, it really goes back. If you're applying to a very conservative in a very conservative role, like, I don't know, let's just say in finance, like they historically have been very traditional in their process. Sometimes we can't make them do anything, and they're not going to step outside of their comfort zone for you and take a risk. Then your chances of, of getting notice because you're trying something unconventional are probably slim, and it doesn't really match the role that you're applying for. If it's finance and is pretty traditional and very conservative in the approach they take, they don't want people going rogue and taking risks because that's not generally how the job is defined. They want people who are going to abide by the rules and be stay in their lane. So you really have to think about, okay, would my taking a risk and doing something out of the norm, like attaching a link to an online portfolio or a Loom video, will that work well with the people who are reading this in the industry where I'm applying? Does it reflect well on me and the job that I'm applying for? Is it sort of in line with that? So that's something to think about too. There was an article that I had commented, a post I had commented on LinkedIn about using a visual or an infographic resume. And the same sort of rule is true there too. If you are applying for a very conservative role, it may or may not work. But if you're applying for a startup, startups are looking for people who are creative, who can think outside of the box, that are trying new things, that aren't afraid to try new things in most cases. So it really goes back to who is your audience, what is their preference, and what is the role that you're applying for? Will this reflect well on you? So that's a good question. I'll be on the lookout, Matt, for anything in cover letters that's sort of above and beyond or unusual. I have not heard of anything really outstanding. I'm looking at some of the other comments here. Um, I'm going to share this one. Thanks, Josette. You're not alone. I'm feeling burned out, job hunting and networking. Is it okay to take a break? I'm not able to give you permission to take a break, Josette. That's between you and your family and your situation. Um, a lot of this comes down to finances. Can you afford to take a break? Because what does taking a break mean? If you stop job searching for 1 week, that is going to extend your job search. And it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be longer. So what will you be missing out on in that week that you are not actively job seeking? We don't know. Could the dream job come up that week that you are not actively job searching? If you drop out and you don't stay in touch with your network, is that the week that somebody in your network has the perfect job for you, and because you didn't reach out, they forgot about you and you missed it? So there are a lot of things to consider before you say, I'm taking a break. If you were to ask me my opinion, what I think might be better for a better solution, Josette, than dropping out of job search altogether, is to just job search for 2 hours, 3 hours a day. Do all the week that you can do in a 3 hour window and then call it quits and go do those other things that are going to bring you joy, that are going to rejuvenate you, that are going to allow you to feel re-energized and feel good. So rather than one or the other, can you find a way to cram into 3 hours a productive job search so that you can feel good about having time to do what you need to do to feel energized? I have noticed that sometimes that can work for people. It just gives them enough of a break so that they're not at it 24/7, which you never should do anyway. But knowing that they only have to do it for 3 hours, 2 hours gives them enough of a energy so they can continue on. So that would be my preference for you, rather than stopping it altogether. Out of sight, out of mind, and I don't want you to disappear. Any other thoughts about questions about job search and what you can be doing during these very unusual times? Any other questions about that? All right then. Um, have a great week. Be good to yourself. Take time to do the small things that bring you joy and help you find your purpose. And you're awesome, just the way you are. So don't go trying to change for somebody else. Make it a great week. And thank you all for being here with me today. I had fun. Take care.